Namaste. This is Vishwa at Vishwa Yoga. In this video, I will talk about the power practices of Tantra. Most of these power practices appear to be magical in nature and have one thing in common: acquiring and using power for protection, thrill, or fulfillment. But for simplicity, I have divided them into 4 different categories: magic, dark, sacrificial, and occult practices. Tantra is not magic, but magical power can be gained through the practices of Tantra. Some practices may bestow extraordinary powers. Many of these practices are part of left-hand path. As I mentioned in the previous video, the left-hand path is again divided into left-hand path and the right-hand path, or rather I would say middle path. So I will mention them as I talk about them. So first, the magic practices. There are thousands of magic practices used in Tantra, but all of them can be categorized into 8 different categories. The first 6 are called black magic and part of left-hand path, which includes practices for killing someone, deluding or confusing someone, subjugating or manipulating someone's mind, ruining and disrupting concentration, disliking or creating hatred, and paralyzing or immobilizing someone. These are forbidden practices and ideally not recommended to be practiced because it is against the law of nature. On the other hand, there are a couple of categories under white magic practices, which is used for peace, healing, or nourishment. White magic practices are part of right-hand path or middle path. However, some of the great masters and sages have used all these practices for positive purposes, such as Rishi Vashishtha used when he paralyzed the whole army of Vishwamitra for his own protection and teaching Vishwamitra a lesson. These powers are acquired using mantra and rituals. It also includes Sabar mantra, which usually local dialect instead of Sanskrit. It was first revealed by Shiva to Shakti and then passed down by Guru Gorakhnath. I have personally seen the practitioners in my village using these techniques for healing people from snake or scorpion bites. It is also known as Jadu Tona or Totka in local language. In recent times, some Indian politicians hire these tantrics to delude their opponents during their election time. Now let me share the uses of one of the black magic practices. This is part of controlling or subjugating, also called necromancy practices, where they control the spirit. As per Tantra, there are different levels of spirit. Many practitioners use these spirits for their selfish needs. I will just mention a dozen types here. It is said that most of these practices are very dangerous, and if one mistake happens in one ritual, it results in insanity, death, or instead of you controlling them, they start to control your life. So it is advisable not to practice them. The first 7 are the evil ones. Pretas are the spirit of those who died without any relatives and appropriate ceremonies. Bhutas are the newly dead ones who is still attached to embodied life. Chudails are the most vicious spirit and like to always harm. Dakins are the spirit of women who died in childbirth. Headless spirit who died in an accident or murdered or burnt alive. Pisachas and Pisachinis are said to be flesh-eating spirit and can know someone's past. The famous Karna Pisachini practice is used to know someone's past, but they don't know much about the future and very little about the present. Some people use this practice to impress others. In the same category, Betalas are there, who is known for the fortune telling and compared to zombies in the West. but Yaksh or Yakshinis are at a level of minor deities, equivalent to Mokuls in Muslims and angels in Christians. Apsaras are the beautiful female spirit with no harm. Brahmarakshasas is the spirit of an excellent guru. Gandharvas are the celestial musicians. Kinnaras are dancers and Vidyadhars are knowledgeable pandits. Last four can be great teachers and useful if someone practices knowing the risk. Now, dark practices usually includes the secret practices of Aghora. There are four major practices, starting with crematorium practice or Shamasan sadhana. Then using the skull, which has a variety of practices, include 5 or more human and animal skulls. Then Mahakal sadhana is considered the very dark and difficult Aghora practice of Shiva. There are variety of corpse practices called Shava sadhana. Details of these practices are only known to the initiated practitioners. Aghoris may use magic practices as well, and needless to say, the dark practices are part of the left-hand path. In some practices, they even eat their own feces, human flesh, and waste. Intoxications and drugs are common in such practices. Aghora practices are connected to Shaiva tradition. Now, sacrificial practices. They are mainly of two types. One is the internal sacrifice, includes mental sacrifice or mansik yajna. But the external sacrifice has three types. One is purely ritualistic, for example, fire offering or yajna. Second is symbolic, that could be words or an intention, such as taking a vow to offer or give away something which you love. Also, union of man and woman is also a symbolic sacrificial rite. Woman is kunda and the fire both. If man knows this homa, liberation is attained. But the third one is the most controversial one, and that is animal sacrifice. And in the past, there were human sacrifices as well. The great reformer Adi Shankara tried to stop the animal sacrifice, saying it is ignorance, but still many practitioners gave their reasons for its validity and continue the animal sacrifice even today. The mental sacrifice is part of right-hand path. Ritualistic and most of the symbolic sacrifices are part of the middle path, but the sexual union and animal sacrifices are part of left-hand path and connected to Shakta tradition. Finally, the 8 occult power practices called Ashtasiddhis. Practitioners can attain these powers either following the left-hand path or the right-hand path. In Tantra, as you advance on the spiritual path, powers are bestowed to you as a gift as well as a test. If you got entangled in enjoying these powers, the spiritual advancement will be compromised. The supernatural powers include the ability to become tiny or minute, infinitely heavy in weight, become super big in size, or able to levitate, or have the authority over all the things, able to influence or charm anyone, able to get anything anywhere done, or achieve anything you desired. These siddhis are mentioned consistently in the various texts, including Yoga Shastras, Puranas, and Agama or Tantra Shastras. However, the minor powers vary from text to text. One of the Tantric texts mentions 8 additional powers, such as sanctified sword to have success in any war, an eye wash to even see buried things, feet ointment which makes you move unnoticed, then the power to become invisible, the ability to transform metal into the gold, very similar, like in Bible it says Jesus turning water into wine. Other minor powers are the ability to fly in a sky or over the sea, able to go anywhere and able to dive under the earth. It was my privilege to meet some of the masters who claimed to have done some of these practices. Lastly, a quick summary to understand the path and practices. The extreme right-hand path will be very selective and will only do the internal or mental practices. Those on the extreme left-hand path will do any and all kind of practices. And the middle path is a mix of both. It uses selective choices, common practices, yoga, sexual and power practices, which are for general well-being, healing, pleasure, peace, and in accordance with the law of nature. Tantra practitioners who use power practices are usually called Occults, Tantrics, and Ojhas. These practitioners can be easily spotted in India just by their looks, and that is the outer impression and misunderstanding people get about Tantra in India. Many Tantrics are addicted to use such power practices for selfish purposes to make money. And that is why people in India think Tantra is a black magic. But the truth is, knowledge of Tantra directly comes from the mouth of Shiva and Shakti, giving us the tool to connect and empower ourselves. Remember, Tantra is all about energy, and energy is power. So it's your responsibility if you use it for good or bad purposes. But if you intervene with the nature and use your power to do something negative, you have to pay a big price. By the way, these power practices are not limited to Tantra, but also prevalent in different cultures across the globe in different forms. So this was a glimpse of the power practices of Tantra. I have tried to keep it simple and logical for clarity and understanding, as there is so much confusion and misunderstanding about Tantra. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. I'm a certified Tantra educator and yoga teacher. I will be happy to guide you on this path. So now you know the main practices of Tantra. In my next video, I will talk about types of Tantra practitioners and who may be eligible for what kind of practices. So thank you for watching and have a wonderful day. Namaste. Thank you so much for listening. If you like the information, please subscribe, like, and share so that everyone else can also enjoy this.